Chicago Tonight, Black Voices is made possible in part by Fifth Third Bank and by the support of these donors.
At Fifth Third, we believe when diverse voices are heard and empowered, communities are made stronger, lives are made better, and the future holds greater promise for all. That's why we're proud to support Chicago Tonight Black Voices. Together, we can make a difference. Together, we can drive change.
Good evening and welcome to Chicago Tonight, Black Voices. I'm Brandis Friedman, and thank you for sharing part of your weekend with us. On the show tonight, mothers teaming up to find their missing children years after they've disappeared. The woman in charge of the Chicago Community Trust announces her departure. Dr. Helene Gale joins us to reflect back on her 5 years of service. The birth of gospel in Chicago, a preview of the latest Chicago Stories episode tracing the history of gospel music.
It's important that we remember who we were to know who we can become.
And exploring the Black Victorian era in a new production now playing at the Goodman Theater. First off tonight, a group of mothers are spending this Mother's Day weekend raising awareness about their daughters and loved ones who've gone missing. In 2021, more than 521,000 people were reported missing, according to the National Crime Information Center. Nearly 90,000 were Black women and girls. That means despite making up about 7% of the U.S. population, Black women and girls were 17% of missing person cases last year. Many of these cases have gone cold, leaving families searching for answers years after their loved one disappeared. Joining us now are LaShawn Walker, the grandmother of King Walker and mother of Diamond Bynum, who both have been missing for 7 years. Karen Phillips, the mother of Kiara Coles, who's been missing for almost 4 years now. Oretha Miller, whose sister Taretha Morrison has been missing for a year. And Fallon Gordon, director of Missing and Murdered Black Women and Girls for the organization Mothers Opposed to Violence Everywhere. Thanks to all of you for joining us. I'm sure this is a difficult weekend for each of you. Karen Phillips, let's start with you, please. Your daughter, Kiara Coles, a postal worker, last seen on October 2nd, 2018, near her apartment in the Chatham neighborhood. She was 26 years old and 3 months pregnant at the time. What can you tell us about Kiara?
Kiara was very outgoing and ambitious. She loved hard. She had her life on track, doing everything that she wanted to do in life. Had the dream job, just had got her a new apartment, was expecting her first child. So, it's just devastating that right when she got everything all together that this happened.
What are some of the things that you want the public to know that might lead to answers about what happened to her?
That I'm going to keep going, trying to do whatever I can, get help from whoever I could get help from. And I'm going to keep holding as many press conferences as I have to, hopefully somebody just get tired of seeing my face and give us some answers that we can, go forward to find out what happened to Kiara.
LaShawn Walker, your daughter Diamond Bynum and grandson King Walker, they were last seen at a relative's home in Gary, Indiana. What can you tell us about Diamond and King's disappearance?
They went missing on July 25th, 2015. They were with the stepmother and Diamond's father. The stepmom said she laid them down that particular morning. She fed them breakfast, bathed them, and laid them down for a nap. And when she woke up, they both were gone, and we haven't seen them since then.
What do you think could have happened?
I know she's known to wander because she has a disease called Prader-Willi syndrome, which is an obese disease that causes her to eat and not know when she's full. So she will usually walk out and maybe go look for a store where she can get junk food from. And she'll probably find the store, but she probably couldn't find her way back home. So she probably got lost, maybe her and King, she took King with her maybe, and they couldn't find their way. And neither one of them could talk very well. King was 2 at the time, and Only her, the immediate family can really understand what Diamond said. So if a stranger saw her on the street, they probably wouldn't even understand what she's saying, even if she asked for help.
And right now we're looking at a progression image of what King would look like later, of what he could possibly look like right now. LaShawn, what's the information you've received from the Gary police?
Well, so far they said they're still going on tips. They got maybe a few tips recently, but nothing panned out for any of them.
Okay. Aretha Miller, your sister, Charitha Morrison, was last seen February 26, 2021. Tell us a little bit about her.
My sister is a 38-year-old mother of 2 children. Her son is 21 and her daughter now is 6. My sister was 4 months pregnant at the time of her disappearance. She dropped my niece off at school and never came back to get her. And we haven't seen her since that day. And that's not like my sister to drop my niece off and just disappear. A part of me still hopes and prays that she's out there. And it's a part of me that thinks she's not. But I'm asking the community and everyone around the world if they know of, any information on my sister, that please contact the police. I don't know, if my sister was going through some type of depression, very ambitious, very outgoing. So, I don't know if she was just going through something or, if something happened to her. I just want closure on this for me and my family.
The Chicago Police Department, they have launched a weekly video series to highlight unsolved homicides and missing persons cases. Superintendent David Brown, he spoke about it earlier this week.
We're highlighting, as you know, older cases that have dead ends and no leads with the hope of generating new tips and leads. And we really don't care how long it takes. Our victims deserve justice and their families deserve closure.
Fallon Gordon, what do you think of this effort?
I think it's a very small step in the right direction. I think that there is a lot more that can be done towards these cases than the video. However, it's a small step in the right direction.
What more would you like to see done since you said this is a small step, the police
and law
enforcement?
Yes, I would like to see the work being done. I would like to see the effort being put behind these women and girls. I would like to see the platform and speaking for these women and girls being given to their families. We want to see the work being done.
Ladies, we all know it's Mother's Day weekend. Karen, you all are hoping to draw some attention to your cases, your daughter's cases, on this particular Mother's Day. How is this weekend different for you compared to any other mothers or obviously before your daughter went missing?
Well, it's kind of hard because, I wanted to experience Mother's Day with her too because this was her first child. All my other girls have kids, so it's just a big part of me missing when Mother's Day come around because she's not here, and I know how she would have been with her child. So just not being able to share that with her is very emotional.
I'm sure. LaShawn, you and your family, you've been searching for Diamond and King for 6 years now. How's this affected you and your family?
It's been a tremendous, I can never find the words, but it breaks all our heart. It's breaking the family apart because we don't know, we don't have answers. King's mother, Ariana Walker, is very traumatized by the situation because that was her first and only child. And it's traumatizing to me as well because I know my daughter with special needs. And just to think that she's out there could possibly being harmed by someone is very traumatizing, knowing that she can't defend herself or she can't take care of herself let alone king. So it's really, I just never could find the particular words to explain how I feel. It's just heartbreaking.
I'm sure. Aretha, same question to you. How's this affected your family?
It has affected my family a lot. But this is very depressing, very, very, and we're steady losing family members. And, you know, to look into my niece and my nephew's face and see the hurt and the pain, that there just tears me up. And, you know, me and my sister, biological mom, is no longer here. And me and my sister is, you know, only siblings with each other. And right now that is just very hard for me to go on with Mother's Day and she's not here. Not just Mother's Day, any day, for me not knowing that she's okay.
Right. A heavy burden. I'm going to ask Fallon one more question before we run out of time. Fallon, you know, police officers, the media scrutinized a lot for not giving these cases enough attention. There was the Gabby Petito case last year that brought all of these issues up. Do you feel like the police and the media have done a better job since that recognition?
No.
I don't. We heard about Gabby Petito all the way across the country every day. We knew a lot about that case, and there are like these ladies that family members are missing. You know, there's not enough information put out there about them. It's just not enough information on in the media and our local media. It's just not.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. My condolences to all of you, and thank you for joining us. Karen Phillips, LaShawn Walker, Aretha Miller, and Fallon Gordon for joining us. And if you have any information about any of these missing person cases, you can contact the police. We'll have more information on how to do so on our website, WTTW.com/news. And there's more Chicago Tonight Black Voices right after this. The first black woman to lead the Chicago Community Trust, Dr. Helene Gayle, announces she's stepping down in June and heading to Atlanta to serve as president of Spelman College. Gayle served as president and CEO of the trust for the last 5 years, leading one of the nation's oldest and largest community foundations, which awards millions of dollars in grants to local nonprofits every year. And Dr. Helene Gayle joins us now. Dr. Gayle, congrats on this next step in your next position. Why now? How did you make this decision to leave?
Well, thanks so much, Brandis. You know, I've said many times this was really probably my hardest career decision ever. You know, I came to the Chicago Community Trust with the expectation that it was the last job that or at least the last full-time job that I would ever do. And, you know, it has been an incredibly gratifying experience to be in Chicago and to be at the Community Trust. But you know, when I was asked whether I would consider leading this iconic institution, you know, it was hard not to take that seriously. And, you know, for me, at the end of a very long career, to be able to feel like I can give back to the next generation, and particularly to the next generation of Black women who are change makers and leaders and who really want to make a difference in the world, I just felt like it was kind of a unique opportunity at a time where I think there's greater appreciation for the role of HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities, than ever before in a world that needs diverse voices at the table. You know, I just felt like it was really a unique opportunity. So, you know, timing is never right on these things, but just felt like
you take the opportunity when it comes.
yeah, this was the right thing for me to do at this time.
Now, under your leadership, the Chicago Community Trust, you all have shifted your strategic focus to close the racial and ethnic wealth gap in Chicago. 2020 census data shows us the median household income for white Illinoisans was roughly $74,000, compared with $41,000 for blacks and just under $60,000 for Latinos. Why make income equality a priority?
Well,
or inequality, I should say.
We made actually wealth inequality our priority because we recognize, first of all, it's the right and the fair thing to do. Communities and households, families that have been left out of economic opportunity is just wrong. People don't have the opportunity to give to their children in the ways that everyone wants to give to their children and to have a brighter future. But we also recognize that in a region that is 2/3 Black and brown, the region can't move forward unless we really think about how do we make sure that those who have been left out of economic opportunity have that opportunity to succeed. It's going to make a difference for those communities and for those households and those individuals, but it's also going to make a big difference for our whole region.
Part of your tenure, obviously, it took place during this pandemic, which exposed and highlighted a lot of existing inequalities in healthcare. I'm sure it was a benefit that, the trust had a public health physician at the head. How did your experience as a doctor help you navigate this pandemic?
Well, I really felt like in many ways I was at the right place at the right time, because not only could we focus on the issues of economic inequity, but also on health inequity. And the two very much go hand in hand. Part of the reason that we put the focus on wealth inequality is that we know that it's so connected to other things. It's connected to health inequality and the life expectancy gap here in Chicago, which is the largest in the nation. It's linked to the issue of public safety and violence, which is such a big issue for us. Lack of access to high quality education based on the neighborhoods that you lived in. So, being here and going through the pandemic and being able to make a difference, both through our relief efforts and now the recovery efforts that we're involved in with our initiative, We Rise Together. I feel like being here as a public health person who is also focused on economic issues, was maybe the right match at the right time.
It all worked out, apparently. So when you first joined the Chicago Community Trust, you told Phil Ponce you were excited to grow and evolve the trust. Here's a look back.
Will you be taking the trust in a new direction, or will you be, is it more of a continuum?
Well, I think any new leader hopefully brings with them fresh ideas. But, I'm very fortunate to be able to build on this 102-year history of a very, very successful organization. So, I want to listen and learn first, and but of course, hopefully continue to evolve the organization as I bring some of my own experiences to it.
We've got just a few seconds left, Dr. Gale, but do you feel like you accomplished your goals? Is there anything you feel like you left undone?
Well, there's always more to be done. I feel like we accomplished a lot. We grew our assets under management significantly from about $3 billion to now over $4.8 billion. People have been incredibly generous. We have developed this new strategy, and I think it's brought others along, and we've developed strong partnerships. We've developed a big focus on policy and advocacy and policy change to go along with our programmatic and grant efforts, because we believe that policy change is also going to be critically important.
So
we've built an incredible staff that I think will live on and continue the mission that we started together.
All right. Well, a lot to take with you a lot of experience to take with you to Atlanta. Congrats on your next step. Best of luck, and thank you for joining us, Dr. Helene Gale.
Thank you so much.
Today, gospel music is a staple of Black churches, but when the genre was first introduced in the 1930s, it wasn't always accepted. The birth and growth of gospel music in Chicago is the subject of the latest episode of WTTW's docuseries, Chicago Stories. The story follows Thomas Dorsey as he came to Chicago during the Great Migration and brought the city his gospel blues.
Dorsey is the father who opens the door for a new music that's connected to the South and is speaking about the new experience of people who were living in the North.
Dorsey penned dozens more blues-infused religious songs. He called it gospel blues. He tried to bring the old landmark churches around to his way of thinking.
When he brings this music we know as gospel, there are ministers who have a fit. They are upset that the music sounds so much like what's happening on Saturday night. And I would make a joke and say, well, how do you know what it sounds like on Saturday night?
Dorsey came up with an aggressive new plan for selling his songs. Dorsey and a select group of singers would travel from church to church demonstrating his gospel blues. Once hooked, they would sell the pastor's sheet music at a dime a song.
The Birth of Gospel traces the story of Thomas Dorsey and how his music inspired generations of gospel singers. As producer Stacey Robinson points out, it also explores the roots of gospel from Southern spirituals during slavery.
The documentary is really about the birth of gospel music in Chicago, and I use that term kind of loosely. I think Chicago was really integral to the birth of gospel music for many reasons. I hope that everyone learns many things because I think that a lot of the story is unknown, but I really hope a wider audience gets to look at gospel music and realize that gospel music is much more than just performance. It's really integral to the history of African American history and culture that dates back all the way to the Atlantic slave trade. A lot of what we think of as gospel music, even traditional gospel music, the modern gospel music we hear now, all of that really, really began in Chicago, right here in our city. And I don't think people realize that. I think that that's a beautiful thing.
The Birth of Gospel has airings on WTTW and WTTW Prime throughout the month of May. You can find more information at WTTW.com/Chicago Stories. Period TV dramas like Bridgerton and The Gilded Age have blown up in popularity. So now a new show at the Goodman Theater is exploring the Victorian era, specifically for Black Americans. Arts correspondent Angel Ito introduces us to Relentless and shares how this exploration of Black history is still American history.
Inspired by her love for the Harlem Renaissance and the Victorian era, playwright Tyla Abercrombie felt compelled to write a story focused on that time period, but from a perspective not frequently seen.
I realized that nobody talked about the Black Victorians. And nobody still talks about them. Maybe one or two, Madam C.J. Walker, W.B. Du Bois, but there were countless beautiful Black folk making a difference in the world, and it's a lost era. And I think that it's important that we remember who we were to know who we can become.
Set in 1919, the story explores an uncovering of family secrets, history, and identity when two sisters, Annelle and Janet, are forced to return home to Philadelphia to settle their mother's estate after her death.
Goodness, Janet! I have practically fallen down a complete flight of stairs and you barely noticed.
While fictional, the story does highlight some historical events.
What they are examining in 1919 is the unrest of Red Summer, which took place here in Chicago, that was caused through, a young Black boy drifting into the white side of the lake. When I wrote the play, was trying to examine what are we still seeing that we thought we had conquered, but we haven't.
Director Ron O.J. Parson says while fictional, Relentless is a reflection of the role people of color played during this time, as their stories have often been left out of history.
White and Black, Asian, everybody, to learn that we were a viable force in this country in the early stages, and a lot of these things that we were doing are still part of our society today.
Roberta Brown of Hazelcrest agrees, noting both positive and negative parallels between then and now.
The whole idea of Blacks in the Victorian age is not really something that we think about because we're not free. We're still struggling. I mean, the things she was talking about, the one daughter, that's talking about the fear that she has, the fact that they're living in, tumultuous times, 1919. And here we are in 2022, and the issues are still the same.
Even though the story explores challenges this country might not have fully overcome, Abercrombie says her message has not only been well received, but understood.
A Japanese American came to me after a performance, and he said he could relate to the journals and the mother because his parents were in internment camps. And though he was not, he understood their fear in the way they raised him.
No matter if I'm here or not, I will always shine brightly over you.
I want to inspire people to movement, right? And I want them to walk away knowing something more about what we as a culture have contributed to all of us. I have always said I don't believe that there's this thing called Black history. It's American history. And I want people to understand that I'm giving you a part of your history, not just mine.
For Chicago Tonight Black Voices, I'm Angel Ito.
And Relentless closes at the Goodman Theater this weekend. And that's our show for this weekend. For all of us here at Chicago Tonight Black Voices, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thanks for sharing part of yours with us. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a proud sponsor of diversity, equity, and inclusion-focused free continuing legal education for lawyers throughout the region.